Hi, this is John Linneball, and this is How to Study for the SAT and ACT Last Minute Tips, December 2019. Here's my contact information if you want to contact me. And remember, if you like this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost anything. And please hit the like, and please share. And please hit the little bell that's in the upper right corner so you can be notified when I come out with new videos. All right, let's get to it. What we're covering here: what should I do the day before the test? What do I need to bring with me? What should I know for the SAT math sections? What should I know for the SAT English section? What should I know for the SAT reading section? What should I know for the SAT essay section? And again, if you like this video, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and click on the little bell in the top right corner for notifications. All right. So first of all, just be real. You're not going to learn everything about the SAT the night before you take the SAT. So stop studying at or before your normal bedtime. You're not going to learn anything new when you're cram studying. Being tired the next day because you were trying to cram study will hurt your score because you're just going to be tired and inattentive. And at this point, after you've reviewed the math formulas and maybe a little grammar and English, you're ready for bed, or at least you're ready to stop studying. And there is neurological research that supports that your brain can only assimilate so much information because of proteins that it makes, etc. So just stop studying at or before your normal bedtime. I'm nervous. What should I do? Well, first you should check to make sure you have a printed out copy of your admission ticket and your photo ID. If you don't have photo ID, bring your birth certificate, etc. Just make sure you have whatever you need to get into the testing center. Hopefully you're taking it at the high school that you attend, so it'll be easy, but if not, make sure you have an ID, your admission ticket, etc. Make sure you have an approved calculator. You can check the SAT or ACT website for a list of approved calculators, but basically anything you'd use in a math or a science class should be fine. You can't use anything that plugs into the wall, makes a paper receipt, so no adding machines. Make sure you have extra batteries and have programmed in the formulas you might need, maybe the circle formula or the quadratic formula. So what else do I need? Well, you're going to need several sharpened number 2 or HB pencils. They're the same thing, but if they're draft person's pencils, then they might be labeled HB rather than number 2. A small plastic pencil sharpener, an eraser, a snack. Again, think a protein bar, not lasagna or something that's messy and you're going to have to bring in a little dish or something, just something that's in bar form or something easy to eat. And a bottle of water. Extra batteries for your calculator, a printed out map of directions to your test site if it's not someplace you know well. That is, it's not the high school that you attend. Make sure you know how to get there. Bus fare or your transit card if you need to get from your home to the test site, or back from the test site to your home on transit, or make sure that you have Uber or Lyft installed on your smartphone and plenty of Uber or Lyft credits in your account, or a valid credit card that's attached to that so you can get to and from without any trouble. Transit fare, Uber, but John, I own a car. What's wrong with you? Well, cars often break down at the worst times. It's called the perversity of inanimate objects, or also Finagle's law. So just make sure that you have some sort of backup plan when you're using Uber, Lyft, bus, train, walking. If your car won't work, or somebody needs to use your car, or you're counting on a ride from somebody, and oh, well, I'm sorry, I had to stay late at work, I can't get you there, blah, blah. Anyway, the goal of all inanimate objects is to resist man and ultimately defeat him, according to Russell Baker. So that's another way to state the perversity of inanimate objects. Accidents happen, but don't count on a break. Standardized tests are designed to be standardized. They're standard. That means everyone has to be treated identically to be treated fairly. For example, the bar exam, the test you have to take to be a lawyer in any U.S. state. I know I've heard the story of a bar exam candidate failing because he or she saved the life of another candidate who'd had a heart attack. So literally came, did CPR, saved this other bar candidate's life, was not given 1 extra second to complete the exam. Okay, that's one hell of an excuse to fail the exam. I'm sure that person got hired at a lot of different law firms, got lots of different offers, but again, it's a risk you take. Okay, by the way, if that happens when you take the SAT, yes, do save the other person. Believe me, that will get you points anywhere for admission, much more than if you said, oh, no, gotta take the SAT, better let that person die. No, please don't do that. All right, that means the test is supposed to start and end on time. I've heard of delays for students who were late. Believe me, a couple of my students complained that they had to wait because somebody came in late and the proctors let them in. Just don't count on your getting such a break. Just assume that everybody else is going to get the special breaks in consideration, but for some reason you never get that. Just assume you have the world's worst luck.
Spicoli.
That's the name they gave me. Hey, you're ripping my car.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
No problem at all. I think you know where the front office is.
And be considerate. That is, if somebody does get a break, and just don't complain. And also, just showing up on time definitely does show a lot of consideration for your fellow student, and people will appreciate it.
Because?
Because other people are just as important as me.
Get there early and relax. Get some breakfast at a restaurant near the test site. Meditate, exercise, look at something fun, etc. Chat with the other early birds, the other people who show up early. Maybe your friends will be there. Don't try to study. Well, first of all, you shouldn't even have your books or your study guides with you. 2, even using your phone, you're not going to learn anything at the last minute. You're just going to stress yourself out. Your head's already going to be swimming. Just be mellow, be in the moment, meditate, deep breathe, something like that. Make sure that you have nothing with you. Once it's time to go into the test, turn your phone off. Don't put it on silent, but make sure it's off. You can't be accused of cheating with a phone that's off. If it has a removable battery, maybe even just take the battery out. Better yet, don't bring it. Leave it in your car, leave it at home, etc. Whatever you need to do. What you need to know for the math section of the SAT or even the ACT. First, know the instructions. Don't read them during the test. That just wastes time. The only difference between the instructions for the 2 SAT math sections, the calculator and non-calculator, is that one lets you use a calculator and the other one doesn't. So you'll get this little box here that you see, and I did cut off the first one because it changes from the calculator, non-calculator. Anyway, you'll be given all these different references. You see the area of a circle, the circumference of a circle, radius, the area, volumes of these things, etc., the number of measured degrees and the angles in a triangle, the number of degrees of arc in a circle, radians. You'll be given all these in this exact box on the SAT for each math section. I hope you don't have to use it. I've made some jokes in other videos where I say it's better call Saul and this is Saul. Okay, I hope you don't have to call Saul because you should really know these things. And the more of this you know, the less time you're going to have to spend flipping back and forth, and seconds count on the SAT. Also, if you're going to take the ACT, you won't get this formula box, so you will have to know that for the ACT. So you might as well just know it for both because you're going to do better if you do. That having been said, if you're absolutely panicked or uncertain, yes, go flip back, call Saul. Okay, go look at the box. Okay, some more math tips. You are going to need to know the quadratic formula. This will not be given to you, and you'll need it unless you're a whiz at completing the square, which most people aren't. Most people don't like completing the square. So you'll need it to solve quadratic equations. You can't factor. Here's a hint: if you see radicals in the solution choices, then you know you're not going to be able to factor it, and that's a dead giveaway that you have to use the quadratic formula. Please also notice that for this formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a to work, you have to first get the quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A lot of times they might have c over there, so it'd be ax squared plus bx equals minus c. So then you would have to add c to both sides to get it into this format. And they could do it with the x term or the x squared term, anything like that. Please, please, please pay attention. Don't lose a point because you just hurried and didn't make sure it was in the proper form, or the standard form first. general form even. So you could also memorize the vertex form, or at least learn to recognize the vertex form of the quadratic function. So you can convert the general form of the quadratic equation f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c to what's called the vertex form by completing the square. So this would be a times x minus h squared plus k. Notice that h comma k is going to be the vertex of the parabola. So if you see a formula that looks like this, a times x minus h squared plus k, know that, okay, h is going to be the x value and k will be the y value of the vertex. Make sure that, for example, if it says x plus h, then you're going to have to say, oh, okay, well, that's minus h. So minus h would be the x value, and then if this is minus k, then again you'd have to say, oh, okay, well, it's the same as plus minus k, so minus k would be the y value. Also, if the quadratic the quadratic equation is in general form, the ax squared plus bx plus c, you can use the formula negative b over 2a to find the x value of the vertex, which is also the axis of symmetry. That would be x equals negative b over 2a, and that vertical line would be the axis of symmetry of the parabola. And you can also take the x value that you figured out using negative b over 2a to plug into the formula to figure out the y value of the vertex. You need to know these polynomial expansions. Know the difference of squares, which is x plus y times x minus y equals x squared minus y squared. This is always on the SAT, and it's likely to be on the ACT. Why? Because the difference of squares can be used to make lots of problems that look really hard, but if you recognize, oh, it's just a difference of squares problem, it's easy to solve. Notice that x plus y times x minus y times I, that is, these are the complex conjugates, two complex numbers that have I, the imaginary unit, in it. That becomes x squared plus y squared, x squared plus y squared. Why, you ask? Ha ha ha. Well, because I is the square root of negative 1, yi times yi is going to be yi squared, so if it's plus yi times minus yi, then you end up with negative yi squared, which then becomes negative y times negative 1, with negative y squared times negative 1, so you end up with y squared, because the negative y squared and the negative 1 multiply to become positive. All right, x squared plus y times x squared plus y is x squared plus 2xy plus y squared, because we have x squared first, inner, outer is going to be xy, inner is yx or xy, so those add up to 2xy, and then the last is y squared, so boom. X minus y, same thing, except it's x squared minus 2xy plus y squared, because x times minus y, negative y times x, so you end up with negative 2xy. So make sure you know that. Okay, a squared plus b squared is a plus bi times a minus bi. So those are good things to know. More math tips: circles. Know the generic coordinate formula for a circle: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where r is the radius and the center is at hk. You will need this, and it will not be given to you. You will also need to know how to complete the square to solve a quadratic equation, to solve many problems involving this formula. You can Google completing the square or look in your math or SAT review book for information on how to do that. I will do a video on completing the square at some point, but haven't done it yet. Know the coordinate distance formula, which is based on the Pythagorean theorem. Please also know the Pythagorean theorem. It's in the SAT formula box. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the coordinate distance formula is just going to be basically x2 minus x1, that whole thing squared, plus y2 minus y1 squared, and that whole thing under the radical sign. So it's pretty easy to figure out. In fact, here we can look it up right now. We can go to coordinate distance formula. All right, coordinate distance formula. The distance between 2 points P, x1, y1, and Q, x2, y2, is given by the distance P and Q, where we have the square root of x squared minus x1 squared times y2 minus y1 squared. So if we look at it here, you have the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So coordinate geometry. Okay, the next thing is, here we go. Okay. We'll go to statistics. Know the mean, median, and mode. The arithmetic mean is just the average, so literally all you do, add together all the values you have, divide by the number of values. So it's average and arithmetic mean the same thing, no pun intended with the mean there. And that's why in the SAT it always says average and then in parentheses arithmetic mean. The median is the middle number when you list all the values, so notice that if more than one value is the same, you have to list the same value all the times it appears. So the median of 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is 2, well, because 2 is the fourth of the 7 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 3 in front of it and 3 behind it. So 2 is the middle value. Even though you would think, well, wait a minute, shouldn't it just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Shouldn't 3 be the middle one because there's 1, 2, and then 4 and 5 after the 3? No. You have to count all the values, all the number of times they appear. So also, if the number of values is even, then you have to take the average of the middle two to find the mean. Let's say there are only 2 2s. Well, then you'd have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, wait a minute, that's 6. Then you have to take 2 and 3, take the average, so the median would be 2.5. The mode is the most common value. Mode also means style, so you can think of the mode as the most popular style of value. In this particular case, 2 would obviously be the mode because it's listed 3 times. Consider watching my math videos. It's a lot too late to do much math review the day before the test, but you can probably brush up on things you have learned but have since forgotten before the test, where you're like, oh, right, it's that. Okay, now I remember. That's going to work. Learning something new, probably not going to happen the night before the test. Anyway, here's a link to my playlist of my math videos. All right, so that brings us to what should I know for the SAT English section. You want to know what makes a sentence a subject and a predicate, also known as a noun and a verb. You want to know what a dependent clause is and that it's not a sentence. So if I said, before I went to the store, that's a dependent clause. Why? Because it doesn't even sound like a complete sentence. Before you went to the store, you did what, John? You tied your shoes? You sang a little song? What? Okay. Know how to use periods, commas, semicolons, and dashes correctly. Know the fanboys conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Know logical comparison errors and how to fix them, such as, I do math better than everyone else on the planet. Well, that would actually be correct. I'm sorry. If I said, I do math better than everyone on the planet, someone would say, well, okay, do you not live on the planet Earth, John? Because you just said you do math better than yourself if you do live on the planet. So there you go. Know how to fix misplaced modifiers. You know, the one time in Africa I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How the elephant got in my pajamas, I'll never know. Ha ha ha. There you go. That's an old Groucho Marx joke where you say, oh, okay, the elephant wasn't in your pajamas, you were in your pajamas, so you want the pajamas to modify me, modify you, not the elephant. Know that they, them, and their cannot be used as gender-neutral singular pronouns. Everybody does it. I've done it since I was about 7 years old. It works. But on the SAT, you have to say he or she, his or her, him or her, his or hers. That's just the way it works in SAT land. Know that or you're going to get something wrong. Know when to use who and whom. I know nobody uses those anymore, but still, if he would work in the sentence, use who. So, who is coming, you could say, is he coming? If him would work, use whom. To whom are you speaking? Are you speaking to him? Whom is an object, who is a subject. So, if you're asking who's doing something, then that would be who. If you're asking to whom is something being done, use whom. Lie is what you do when you're reclined to sleep or rest. Lay is when you place something somewhere. So if you say, I'm going to go lay down, someone could say, what are you going to lay down? Ha ha ha. All right. Make sure that you read the editing questions that are something like, suppose the writer wanted to emphasize that some point. Wanted to emphasize that it's very hard to make a good cake or something like that. Then carefully see, pick the right answer, because they might all be grammatically correct, but one might be about making a cake, one might be about making fish, one might be about doing something else. So make sure your answer choices to the questions referring to graphs make sense in light of the information in the graphs. That is, the words in the passage should match what it actually says or shows on the graph. And also see the video playlist that I reference here. These are going to be more things about the English section. Reading section. Flip through the section to see what passages interest, bore, or scare you. Save the scaring and boring for last. If you like science, great. Do the science passage first. If you think that Jane Austen novel passages are great, great. Do that first. If you are of the opinion, oh my God, I hate science, then fine. Save that for last, because you're probably more likely to get that wrong anyway, because either it scares you or just bores you to the point that you don't want to read it. If you're like a lot of my students, someone who said, I like science, but I would rather pluck out my own left eye than read a Jane Austen novel, then please save the Jane Austen novel for last. Do the vocabulary and context. That is something like, the word cheesy at line 5 most nearly means, do those questions first, because the meaning will be easy to figure out if you read a few lines up and down from that line, but it almost certainly won't be the most common meaning of the word. So here, cheesy could mean literally covered in cheese. I love cheesy pizzas. But it might also mean, this pizza is cheesy. Is this crust made out of cardboard? What's wrong with this? So you would say, okay, so then cheesy might mean of inferior quality, But it's easy to figure out if you read it. If you just guess based on what the most common meaning is, you're going to be wrong, because they always pick secondary meanings or archaic meanings that usually aren't really used anymore, but it's an old text and it's very easy to figure out from reading it. You do want to go straight to the questions and find the command of evidence, that is, which provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question, type questions. Then mark the previous questions, the ones right before those questions, for each command of evidence question, and then you'll know where you should mark to where you find the answers to that question. So you'll know you should mark it, like if you go take the question that's before the command of evidence question, say, oh, okay, I found it here. So you can just make a little mark with your pencil in the text. That way, when you go to the command of evidence question, chances are one of the answer choices will include the lines that you've marked off to find the answer, so then you know that that's the answer. Not always going to work that way, so it might be you have to go find another part of the passage that also has the same information in it. That's life. Reading section continued. Make sure that you go to the correct lines. If a word you're asked to define may be used differently at different places, and the way it's used in a different place than the line that's mentioned in the question, it's a great distractor wrong answer. So run. I think run is the English word with the most listed definitions in the dictionary. Make sure that run means, to move quickly on your feet, not, a run in a stocking or something like that, or a score in a baseball game. So make sure that you find each choice listed in a detail question. They might say the author mentions everything except. So then the right answer is going to be the one that's not mentioned in there, but I'm sure it'll look reasonable if you don't actually go look them all up. There's also could be eye-catching words, like if it says in the passage, Jack worked for an organized crime family, that wouldn't support an answer such as, Jack worked hard to support his wife and children. That's not what an organized crime family is. It's not your actual family. So, for the paired passages, answer the questions pertaining to the first passage first, then the second passage next. So, if you read the first passage and go look at the questions, the first questions should be all about the first passage before it gets any questions about the second passage. Even if you go to the questions at the bottom, fine. You'll see, they'll give you the line numbers so you can just see where does the first passage end, and don't do any questions that go past that. Don't worry, the first passage's questions will come first, so, distractor answers, wrong answers that reference things that are mentioned in the second section, but not the first one, won't work because you'll say, no, I didn't read that. So definitely do that. Do the first passage and the questions, then read the second passage and do those questions. The optional SAT essay. You don't have to do it the way I did in my videos. Just had somebody comment on one of my SAT done in real-time videos. Seemed like a nice kid, said, oh my God, I did this using an outline and, taking notes, and you just did it on the fly. Do I have to do it your way? And, now I'm not certain. So I had to reassure him, doesn't matter how you do it as long as it's an effective method for you. I use the get-going, right-on-the-fly method, leaving space for the introductory paragraph to be written in at the end, because that's the way my mind works. I just want to go at it, bang, 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 there's the answer, and just write it, and then I'll just write the introductory paragraph at the end so it looks like I planned it, and, it's not the way it works for me, as I just want to write it, especially in limited time. If you're somebody who can do an outline or make some notes and you want to read the whole passage thoroughly before you start writing the essay, great. That's awesome. Just make sure you can do it so everything is done within that 50-minute period. They won't give you any extra time. In the first paragraph, whether you write it at the beginning or at the end, always name the title, author, and genre of the passage, and give examples of ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos, pathos, and logos mean facts, emotional language, and rhetoric, and logic. So always mention ethos, pathos, and logos, even if you just say facts, emotional language, rhetoric, logic. They do talk about, evidence, powerful word choice, da-da-da-da-da. So you can mention other literary devices, humor, metaphor, da-da-da, as appropriate, but don't overreach. What I mean by overreach is if you remember something like synecdoche or something like that, I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation, but you don't know what it is really, don't try to guess what it is. Don't use any other vocabulary words where you don't really know what they mean, you're not completely sure, because it's going to look horrible if you actually do not use it correctly. You can also use your opinion on, how do I put it? Basically, do not mention your opinion on the topic discussed in the essay that's being written about by the author. You're just to analyze the methods used by the author. So I'll get back to what I was starting to mention before I realized I hadn't mentioned this other thing. You can, and yes, I'm contradicting myself to some extent, is you can possibly use your opinion on the subject to point out a way in which the essay could have been stronger. That is, if the author completely ignored an argument that contradicts, or maybe even one that supports his or her point. So if you just say, oh my God, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, this person is just completely straw-manning this position, I can't believe somebody's this ignorant. Fine, you can say, well, the author ignored the obvious counter-argument that blah, blah, blah. Or maybe you're saying, well, why is this author making a really stupid argument for something I support when there would be a better argument? You can add that. You could say, well, ignores this obvious argument, but only do that after you've already analyzed the things the author actually did right, because that's mostly where your grade's going to come from. In fact, that's going to be almost all where your grades come from. The only reason I'm mentioning this is if it's something that's got you upset, you have a choice to bring it out. And also, if I were an essay grader, I would give you some points for that. If you said, hey, I've actually found either a factual flaw, they don't mention important facts, they use an obvious logical fallacy, not likely, but they might, or perhaps it's even relying on a non-authoritative source. For example, most of you have probably seen email forwards and things where someone discusses evil is not something that exists, it's actually just the lack of good, just like the lack of heat is cold. Cold is not a separate entity, it's the lack of heat. And you know who said that? Albert Einstein. So it's being used to make a point about good and evil. And Albert Einstein, while a wonderful physicist, was not a theologian. His opinions on theology or philosophy not necessarily any more valid than anyone else's. His opinions on physics, darn right, he knows a lot more than I'll ever know about physics. Or, he knew a lot about physics. He's dead now. But anyway, definitely, if you see some appeal to authority that's misplaced, you can point that out. Also, consider watching my essay done in real-time videos. I'll have a link to the playlist for those, so maybe that'll help you out. Did you find this video useful? Please like it and subscribe to this channel. Neither action costs you anything. You'll be alerted about my new, always free videos. Why do I care? Well, YouTube doesn't give me any ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of view time in a year. I can get the 1,000 subscribers over longer than a year, but basically I have to have 4,000 hours of video viewing time by people before they'll even consider monetizing these videos. So if you saw an ad on my channel, please know I got nothing from that. I'm not getting any portion of this revenue. While many people are watching these, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time in the last year. I don't have anywhere near 1,000 subscribers. Last time I checked, I had 401, so thanks to everyone who has subscribed. And for the same reasons, you are not only welcome, but encouraged to share links to this video, put it in playlists, etc. And of course, I'm always happy to read and respond to constructive criticism or suggestions for new videos. I do reserve the right to delete comments from and block those who specialize in destructive criticism, you know what I mean, trollers, or people who just constantly mention things that are off topics, spammers, disturb people, that sort of thing. And thanks for watching, and good luck on the SAT.